Genesis chapter 2 describes the location of the Garden of Eden in relationship to 4 rivers. 3 of these rivers are known, and 1 is a mystery, the lost river of Eden, so to speak.
Imagine a place where lush gardens flourished, exotic treasures awaited discovery, and a river flowed with gold. For centuries, the mythical River Pishon has captivated explorers and scholars, leading them on a quest to uncover the lost wonders of the Garden of Eden. Could we finally be on the brink of a groundbreaking revelation about this elusive river? What secrets lie beneath the soil of ancient landscapes? Join us as we explore the astonishing discovery of the Garden of Eden's Pishon River. The Garden of Eden, humanity's lost paradise. The Garden of Eden, first mentioned in Genesis chapter 2, verse 8, holds a central place in the Bible as a symbol of paradise and the origins of humanity. Genesis states, "And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed." This garden was more than just a home. It was a divine creation, abundant and perfect, where every need was met in harmony with nature. In the early chapters of Genesis, it's described as the Garden of the Lord, emphasizing its connection to God's perfection and care. Ezekiel even calls it the Garden of God, further highlighting its spiritual significance. The name Eden likely comes from the Akkadian word Edenu, derived from the Sumerian Eden, meaning plain or steppe. However, this simple word masks the grandeur that the garden represented. It was a place of unmatched beauty and abundance, described as having every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. In this garden, Adam lived in a state of perfect innocence and peace, with his needs perfectly met. It was a place where humans enjoyed an unbroken connection with their Creator, living in harmony with the natural world around them. Among the trees of Eden, 2 held particular significance: the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of life symbolized immortality and God's eternal sustenance, while the tree of knowledge of good and evil became the focal point of humanity's first moral choice. God warned Adam not to eat from the latter tree, but as the narrative unfolds, this command would soon be broken. The story takes a pivotal turn with the creation of Eve, crafted by God from Adam's rib, as described in Genesis 2, verse 22. Her creation represents not only her equal status, but also the shared destiny between man and woman. Eve's presence brought completeness to the human experience in Eden, and together, Adam and Eve lived in a state of innocence, unashamed of their nakedness. However, their idyllic existence was interrupted by the cunning of a serpent, described as more crafty than any other wild animal. This serpent, often associated with Satan, tempted Eve to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge, suggesting that doing so would make her, like God, knowing good and evil. Eve succumbed to the temptation, and Adam soon followed, both consuming the forbidden fruit. The immediate consequence of their disobedience was the realization of their nakedness. No longer innocent, they hurriedly sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. Their newfound awareness wasn't just physical, it marked the loss of their pure relationship with God. When God sought them in the garden, Adam and Eve, ashamed and afraid, hid among the trees. Their guilt was evident, and when confronted, they confessed their actions. The consequences of their disobedience were severe and far-reaching. The serpent, as the instigator, was cursed to crawl on its belly and be despised by humanity. For Eve, the penalty was painful childbirth and a life of subordination to Adam, a reflection of the fractured harmony between the sexes. Adam's punishment was equally harsh. The once perfect ground of Eden would now be cursed, and he would have to toil and labor for his food. His mortal fate was sealed, "For dust you are, and to dust you shall return." The banishment from Eden marked the end of paradise for Adam and Eve, but it also set the course for the rest of humanity. Their fall from grace introduced pain, suffering, and mortality into the human condition, forever altering the relationship between humans and their Creator. Eden, once a place of eternal life and divine presence, became a lost paradise, symbolizing not just the beginning of humanity, but the profound consequences of free will and disobedience. Though Adam and Eve were expelled from the garden, the story of Eden remains a powerful metaphor for the human experience. It speaks to themes of temptation, choice, and consequence, lessons that resonate deeply across time and cultures. The Garden of Eden, with its lush beauty and tragic fall, continues to capture the imagination as a timeless story of innocence lost and the enduring hope for redemption. The Rivers of Eden. The location of the Garden of Eden, as described in the Bible, has long been a topic of fascination. In Genesis 2 verses 10 to 14, the text provides a vivid description of 4 rivers: Pishon, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Perat, or Euphrates, that flowed from a single source in Eden. These rivers, along with references to surrounding lands, have spurred debate and exploration over centuries as scholars seek to pinpoint the garden's geographical setting. 3 of these rivers, Gihon, Hiddekel, and Euphrates, are particularly well known and are often mentioned in historical records. The Gihon River is said to flow around the land of Ethiopia, which refers to a region in Africa located west of the Red Sea and extending southward. While the borders of Ethiopia have changed over time, the general area remains the same as described in ancient texts. If we imagine that a river once flowed from what is now the Red Sea Basin southward into Africa through the Afar Triangle, it aligns beautifully with the idea of a river encircling the land of Ethiopia. This could suggest that the Gihon River may have followed this path, nourishing the land with its waters and gradually shaping the landscape throughout the ages. The name Hiddekel evokes feelings of sharpness, swiftness, and light. This river, identified with the Tigris River in Iraq, holds deep historical importance. Sadly, people living along the banks of the Tigris are now being forced to adapt and change their ancient ways of life. The Tigris has been linked to many significant biblical stories, including that of Jonah, who crossed this river on his mission to deliver a message to the city of Nineveh. The book of Daniel also mentions Hiddekel, where Daniel shares a vision he had by the river. In this vision, he sees a magnificent figure shining brightly, echoing the descriptions of Jesus found in the book of Revelation by the Apostle John. Both visions present a divine being with striking features, highlighting powerful spiritual experiences. A key difference lies in their settings. Daniel's vision occurs by the river Hiddekel, while John's unfolds on the island of Patmos. Despite these differences, both experiences convey a strong sense of divine presence and might. The Tigris River, which flows through Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria, is the second largest river in Western Asia. Together with the Euphrates, it forms a crucial waterway system that outlines the borders of Mesopotamia within the region known as the Fertile Crescent. More than just a river, it has historically served as a vital means of transportation and irrigation for the early civilizations that thrived in this largely arid area. Today, millions of people in Syria and Iraq are facing serious water shortages as the Euphrates, the region's longest river, continues to dry up, highlighting its historical and ongoing significance. The Euphrates River is not just a river, it's a remarkable waterway that has woven its way through countless stories and legends, making it a symbol of life and endurance. This mighty river has acted as a vital source of life for many civilizations, helping them flourish with its nourishing waters throughout history. It has served many roles, as a dividing line between lands, as a route for trade and travel, and as a beacon of hope and strength during challenging times. Spanning an impressive 1,300 miles, the Euphrates is the largest river in Southwest Asia. Its journey begins where 2 streams meet: the Karasu River, which rises in the scenic Armenian highlands of eastern Turkey near Erzurum, and the Murat River, originating southwest of the majestic Mount Ararat, close to Lake Van. The valley carved by the Euphrates became the heartland of great empires like Babylonia and Assyria, shaping the course of history in the region. For centuries, it marked the eastern boundary of Egyptian and Roman power, as well as the western edge of the vast Persian Empire. The Euphrates also carries deep significance in Islamic history, especially during the Battle of Karbala, where Imam Hussein and his loyal companions were martyred. In the biblical narrative, the river serves as an important landmark, symbolizing the border of the land promised to Abraham's descendants through his sons Isaac and Jacob. In Hebrew scriptures, it is often simply referred to as the river, representing a sacred covenant that stretches from the river of Egypt to the magnificent Euphrates, echoing the promise of hope and divine connection for generations to come. In the Genesis account, the Garden of Eden is depicted as being nourished by 4 rivers. Among these, 2 have been confidently identified: the Tigris and the Euphrates. To further unravel this mystery, it is essential to explore the area further south, where the Karun River converges with the Tigris and Euphrates. Many scholars believe that the Karun River is a strong contender for the Gihon, as it flows through the ancient land of Kush, historically known as the land of the Cades. Kush, located in northern Sudan, stands as one of Africa's forgotten kingdoms, steeped in rich history. At the height of its power in the 8th century BC, the kings of Kush conquered Egypt, a feat that showcased their strength and ambition. Interestingly, there are 2 regions known as Kush, one in Africa near Ethiopia and another in Central Asia, highlighting a fascinating connection between distant lands. In the ancient African Kush, situated along the banks of the Nile River in present-day northern Sudan, a remarkable civilization flourished. Despite being initially ruled by neighboring powers, the kings and queens of Kush rose to prominence, challenging some of history's most formidable empires. From approximately 1500 to 1100 BCE, Egypt exerted control over Kush, imparting its cultural and religious customs to the region. With the relationships between the garden and these 3 rivers established, the quest for the mysterious 4th river, the Pishon, continues. Havilah and the Pishon River. The land of Havilah, as described in the book of Genesis, has fascinated biblical scholars and historians for ages. Its importance comes from its supposed link to the elusive Pishon River, one of the 4 rivers said to flow from the Garden of Eden. Finding out where Havilah is located is essential to unraveling the mystery of Eden and its rivers. Genesis paints a picture of Havilah as a land overflowing with natural riches, especially high-quality gold. The text also mentions that aromatic resin and onyx were found in this region. These descriptions have spurred researchers to search for locations in the ancient Near East that might fit this image of a land filled with valuable minerals. Many scholars believe that Havilah is likely located in the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in what is now Saudi Arabia. This belief is backed by various compelling pieces of evidence and historical insights. To start, the Arabian Peninsula, especially its western part, has been known for its gold deposits since ancient times. This matches perfectly with the biblical description of Havilah. In fact, Saudi Arabia hosts the largest gold mine in the Middle East, called the Ma'ad ad-Dahab, or Cradle of Gold. This mine, along with many others in the area, has been producing gold for thousands of years, just as Havilah is described as a land rich in gold. Moreover, the mention of aromatic resin in Havilah aligns nicely with the Arabian Peninsula's history. This region has long been renowned for producing frankincense and myrrh, precious resins that were highly prized in ancient times. These aromatic substances were traded along the famous incense route, which stretched from southern Arabia northward, passing through regions some researchers believe could be where Havilah was located. The mention of onyx, another valuable resource tied to Havilah, adds to the connection with Arabia. Various types of semi-precious stones, including onyx, have been mined in the Arabian Peninsula for centuries. Geographically, Havilah's position relative to other places mentioned in Genesis also supports the idea that it is in Arabia. The biblical text notes that Havilah is located east of Egypt and towards Assyria, which aligns well with the location of the Arabian Peninsula. This combination of geographical clues and historical evidence makes a strong case for Havilah's identification with this vibrant and resource-rich region. Another intriguing piece of evidence that supports the connection to Havilah comes from ancient texts of the Near East. Some researchers propose that the name Havilah may relate to Howlan, a term found in ancient South Arabian inscriptions that refers to a specific area in Yemen. Identifying Havilah with the Arabian Peninsula has significant implications for our quest to find the Pishon River and, consequently, the location of the Garden of Eden. If Havilah truly corresponds to Arabia, it suggests that the Pishon could have been part of an ancient river system that once flowed through this region. This idea has gained traction thanks to geological studies that have uncovered evidence of dried-up riverbeds that once crossed the Arabian desert. Researchers have used satellite images and ground surveys to find these ancient channels, which indicate that the Arabian Peninsula had a much wetter climate in the past, one that could support extensive river systems. Although the precise boundaries of biblical Havilah are still debated, the link to the Arabian Peninsula provides a fascinating framework for understanding this ancient land. It aligns well with the biblical descriptions and archaeological findings, helping to connect ancient texts with our modern scientific insights. Ongoing research into Havilah and its potential location in Arabia continues to illuminate the historical geography of the ancient Near East, offering captivating glimpses into the world depicted in the early chapters of Genesis. David Roll's controversial location. For centuries, the quest to find the geographical location of the Garden of Eden has fascinated scholars, theologians, and explorers alike. While many see the story of Eden as symbolic, others have tried to trace its real-world location using the clues provided in the Book of Genesis. British archaeologist David Roll posits a compelling theory, identifying a location for the Garden of Eden just 10 miles from the bustling industrial city of Tabriz in northwestern Iran. Despite skepticism from some experts, Roll's assertions have garnered interest from various historians and geologists who find merit in his claims. Roll paints a vivid picture of the site. As you descend a narrow mountain path, you see a beautiful alpine valley, just like the Bible describes it, with terraced orchards on its slopes, crowded with every kind of fruit-laden tree. This picturesque valley, still thriving with mud brick villages, serves as a testament to the lush, fertile landscape that Roll believes aligns with the ancient descriptions of Eden. He notes that the term Gan, the Hebrew word meaning walled garden, aptly describes the valley encircled by imposing mountains, with Mount Sehand looming majestically above. This snow-capped extinct volcano, Roll argues, corresponds to the biblical Mountain of God mentioned in the Book of Ezekiel, where the divine presence was said to reside amid red-hot coals. Cascading from Mount Sehand is the Aji-Che River, whose name intriguingly translates to walled garden in the local dialect. Roll notes that the river is still revered by locals, believed to possess magical properties. According to Roll, the Bible's placement of Eden on the eastern edge of a fertile plain is corroborated by the valley, which sits adjacent to the vast Mian-Doab plain and is flanked by the salt lakes of Urmia and Van. Historically, the region was much more temperate and humid, enabling dense forests of pine and cedar to thrive, an earthly paradise that resonates with the idyllic descriptions found in ancient texts. Yet, Roll laments that contemporary pollution from nearby petrochemical industries has transformed this paradise into what he calls a paradise lost. This reflection on environmental degradation connects with Roll's interpretation of the Eden narrative, which he perceives as a metaphor for humanity's descent from a harmonious existence to the complexities of urban life. While Roll's theory diverges sharply from mainstream academic thought, he finds allies among a growing cohort of archaeologists and historians who insist that Eden has a tangible location. Many scholars traditionally regard the search for Eden as a pursuit akin to seeking the mythical Hades. Critics argue that the story of Eden should remain a matter of faith rather than archaeology. However, Roll counters this skepticism by treating the Bible as a historical document, akin to the writings of ancient historians. According to Roll, the biblical account places Eden at the convergence of 4 rivers: the Tigris, Euphrates, Gihon, and Pishon. He identifies the Tigris and Euphrates, which flow near Lake Van, as straightforward candidates. Roll posits that the Gihon corresponds to the Araxes River and the Pishon to the Uijun River, both of which meet in the vicinity of his proposed Eden. This geographical mapping offers a thrilling prospect for those inclined to believe that the garden is more than a mere figment of religious imagination. Roll also highlights numerous landmarks that retain biblical names in the area. The Cushé Dog is identified as the Mountain of Cush, while the Araxes represents the Gihon. Furthermore, a region called Nokti, near Tabriz, is suggested as the land of Nod, where Cain was exiled. Roll's interpretations encourage a re-evaluation of biblical narratives, suggesting that they may indeed reference specific geographic locales. Roll's previous work has already stirred controversy within the academic community, especially with his radical reinterpretation of Egyptian chronology and its correlation with biblical events. As the debate continues, Roll remains steadfast in his belief that the Garden of Eden has been located, challenging scholars to reconsider the intersection of myth, history, and geography. The ancient riverbed discovery. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the scientific world was abuzz with excitement over a remarkable find by Dr. Farouk El-Baz, an Egyptian-American scientist and geologist. Using advanced satellite images, Dr. El-Baz uncovered what looked like a huge, ancient riverbed winding across the Arabian Peninsula. This groundbreaking discovery was set to change our understanding of the area's ancient water systems and might even shed light on biblical geography. Dr. El-Baz, famous for his work with NASA and his skill in remote sensing, was carefully examining satellite images of the Arabian Peninsula when he spotted some unusual shapes in the desert terrain. These patterns, visible from space, hinted at a long dried-up riverbed that had once meandered through the region. This ancient river system, known locally as Wadi al-Rumah, seemed to start in the Hijaz Mountains of western Saudi Arabia and flow eastward toward the Persian Gulf. The magnitude of this discovery was staggering. At its widest points, the riverbed stretched up to 3 miles across, indicating it once carried a large amount of water. This finding was particularly striking because the Arabian Peninsula is currently an arid landscape. It implied that, long ago, the region enjoyed a much wetter climate, one that could support large rivers and perhaps even lush plant life. To validate his satellite observations, Dr. El-Baz organized and led several expeditions into the Arabian Peninsula. These field studies provided essential proof supporting the existence of the ancient river system. Researchers discovered smooth pebbles, shaped by flowing water, scattered across vast desert areas. These pebbles, which originated from the Hijaz Mountains, had traveled hundreds of miles along the river, offering concrete evidence of the river's past existence and its journey. The discovery of this ancient river system had significant implications for our understanding of the geological and climate history of the Arabian Peninsula. It indicated that the region had experienced dramatic climate shifts over hundreds of thousands of years, moving between wet and dry periods. This new knowledge is vital for piecing together the environmental conditions that may have influenced how early humans migrated and settled in the area. El-Baz's exciting discovery reignited interest in the quest for the legendary Pishon River mentioned in the Bible. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. Dr. Clara Jennings stared in disbelief at the ancient map sprawled across her desk. Lines and symbols hinted at a forgotten world, each stroke imbued with the promise of adventure. Her eyes fixed on the bold inscription, "The Garden of Eden's Pishon River has just been found." Legends had whispered of its existence for centuries, a river of gold said to flow with riches beyond imagination. After years of research and exploration in the arid mountains of Mesopotamia, Clara had finally unearthed a hidden cave, revealing the remnants of an ancient civilization. Inside, the faded map detailed a route leading to the river's mouth, marked by a glowing sun symbol, a sign that the legends were true. Clara felt a thrilling pulse through her veins. She was on the brink of rewriting history. With her team, she followed the map's winding paths through dense forests and treacherous valleys. As they approached the river's banks, sunlight sparkled off the water like scattered jewels. Clara knelt by the shimmering current, the very Pishon River that had eluded scholars for generations. The air was thick with mystery, and a sense of destiny enveloped her. As the team began to collect samples, Clara looked up, her heart racing. What treasures and revelations lay hidden in the depths of this ancient waterway, waiting to be discovered? Tracing the lost River of Eden. Some researchers, including archaeologist James Sauer, propose that a newly discovered ancient riverbed may actually be the long-lost Pishon River mentioned in the book of Genesis. According to Sauer, this river fits the biblical description better than any other river known today. His findings, combined with Dr. Elbaz's recent discovery, lend credibility to the idea that they have indeed uncovered this fabled river from Eden. This riverbed is considered the most likely candidate for the Pishon River, which is said to have originated from the Hijaz Mountains and eventually merged with the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. Interestingly, this riverbed is dry for most of the year now, but ancient records indicate that during a time known as Jaela, the climate was much wetter, allowing the river to flow continuously across the land, stretching from Egypt to Assyria. Scholars estimate that this flow lasted until around 200,000 BC, when changing climate conditions caused it to dry up. At its source, the river flows down from the Hijaz Mountains. It's fascinating to note that the same types of volcanic rock found in these mountains can be seen in the gravel of this ancient riverbed. Granite, black basalt, and quartz, materials sourced from the mountains, are all present. Among the intriguing features of this area is a prominent vein of quartz that runs through the mountainside. This extensive deposit serves as the main source of the quartz pebbles scattered throughout the riverbed. In ancient times, when the river was alive with water, these pebbles would have been carried downstream, eventually merging with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Genesis describes the Pishon River as winding through the land of Havilah, which closely resembles the river's ancient path across Arabia, curving elegantly across the Arabian Peninsula. While finding Wadi al-Rumah, believed by many to be the Pishon River, isn't particularly hard due to its vastness, navigating it can be challenging. The soft sand and shifting dunes covering parts of the riverbed make exploration tricky. Interestingly, when comparing Wadi al-Rumah's size to that of the Euphrates River, a surprising discovery emerges. The banks of Wadi al-Rumah are wider than those of the Euphrates today. In ancient times, the Pishon would have been even larger, with its riverbed measuring over 1.7 miles wide, a truly staggering size. As the area is explored, several fenced-off ancient wells are discovered within the dry riverbed, remnants of Wadi al-Rumah's role as a crucial route to Mesopotamia. Yet, this riverbed disappears beneath a vast sea of dunes. Crossing this sandy barrier to the other side, where Wadi al-Rumah reappears, proves difficult. On the east side of this dune field, Wadi al-Rumah can be rediscovered. Following the river upstream reveals gravel lining its banks, evidence of the river's powerful ancient flow. Approaching Kuwait, the gravel plain fans out, indicating the confluence of the Euphrates, Tigris, and Pishon rivers. This fan-like formation, sprawling across much of Kuwait, highlights the significant water flow of ancient times. Notably, the pebbles scattered throughout the gravel plain puzzled geologist Dr. Elbaz, who began to question their origins. His findings uncovered that these pebbles, which originated from the Hijaz Mountains, had been shaped and transported by the strong currents of the ancient river. Samples taken from the Hijaz Mountains matched the smoothed pebbles found in the gravel fields, revealing the incredible journey these rocks had undertaken over 500 miles downstream. Dr. Elbaz carefully mapped where the pebbles were found along the river, demonstrating that they had traveled over 500 miles from their source in the Hijaz Mountains. Following the riverbed for miles and witnessing its gradual expansion showcases the sheer scale of this ancient flow. This raises an intriguing question. Could this river indeed be the fabled Pishon? A mystery lost to time. The search for the Garden of Eden continues to fascinate theologians, historians, and laypeople alike. However, many biblical scholars believe that its actual location may never be found due to the transformative effects of the Great Flood described in the Bible. According to the scriptures, this flood was a cataclysmic event that reshaped the earth and obliterated the world as it existed before. The Bible recounts how, after Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden, the world was altered dramatically. The flood, as described in the book of Genesis, inundated vast areas, burying entire landscapes beneath layers of sediment. This geological upheaval left sedimentary layers, sometimes miles thick, which bear witness to the violent forces of nature unleashed during this catastrophic event. As a result, the world that existed before the flood was irrevocably altered, erasing the traces of the Garden of Eden. After the flood, Noah and his family settled in the plain of Shinar, which corresponds to modern-day Sumeria or Babylonia. Here, we find the rivers Tigris and Euphrates. However, scholars argue that these rivers are not the same as those mentioned in the context of Eden. Instead, they likely inherited their names from the pre-flood world, much like settlers from the British Isles named new locations in America and Australasia after familiar places back home. This renaming indicates a significant geographical shift rather than a direct continuity of the original rivers. Moreover, the Bible describes one river in Eden that split into 4 branches. Today's geography in the Middle East does not match this description. The river's current paths and characteristics diverge significantly from what would be expected of the rivers flowing from a mythical garden. The combination of geological changes and the loss of all pre-flood landmarks makes it nearly impossible for scholars to pinpoint the Garden of Eden's original location. Thus, the garden remains an intriguing yet elusive part of biblical lore, shrouded in mystery and symbolizing humanity's lost paradise. What significance would finding the River Pishon hold for our understanding of biblical geography and the historical context of the Garden of Eden? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.